I'm writing this in a bit of a sleep-deprived state, but bear with me here. I've been a bit of a writing rut recently, but I wanted to have a more introspective video on myself. Now, I could sit here and waffle on about random shite that no one really cares about, but I've been meaning to reflect on some things. I probably won't even publish this video, to be honest with you. Five Nights at Freddy's. When this game came out and blew up out of nowhere, I remember being infatuated with the world and the potential story that was bestowed upon us by Scott Cawthon. I was one of those children that would never actually play the games, but would watch all the skits, comic dubs, theories, and let's plays from the old god horror YouTubers. How many of you can actually remember the opening lines of Markiplier's first FNAF video? It wasn't until recently that I decided to play FNAF 1 myself, just to see what I was so scared about in general. The game, and Frank, hasn't aged well in some aspects, such as the aspect ratio on modern displays. I chalk that up to either me not knowing how to force 16:9 or FNAF 1 being, well, FNAF 1. Either way, that is but a minor nitpick from me. I think one of the big things that FNAF did well for itself, especially at the time, was how tense the first game was. In fact, how tense the earlier games was. When the game came out, it was innovative. It had an air of mystique to it that not many other games in general had at the time, especially in the genre of horror. In its own little bubble, FNAF 1 had a story that, while open-ended, still gave you a little bit of structure and detail, leaving the rest to the interpretation and the dark, somewhat twisted creativity of the human mind. The absence of information leading to the fear of the unknown, allowing a slow but palpable fear to build up within the cracks and crevices of one's own mind. It's like a welling feeling in the stomach. It's like an anxiety, slowly creeping up on you. Sometimes you don't even know it's there. FNAF 1's greatest strength is this absence of information in multiple departments. A sensory overload of sights and sounds, overwhelming claustrophobia, and the dingy, dim-lit hallways, long since left to rot, abandoned by many sense of the words. FNAF 1 became a catalyst for a new age of horror, accurately and somewhat memed-on term of mascot horror. Many characters that have spawned from this would be the aforementioned Freddy Fazbear himself, Bendy from Bendy and the Ink Machine, that one guy from Hello Neighbor that fell off, Poppy Playtime. All these games stemmed from the initial popularity boom of FNAF, always trying to capitalize on it, but never quite getting to the heights that FNAF reached. Five Nights at Freddy's was never expressed to be a children's game. Polar opposite for that matter. The themes behind the game is about as dark as it gets. The corruption and loss of childhood innocence, something usually so lively being so empty and hollow, liminal in a sense of the word. Missing children, haunted ghosts, a murder mystery. Something a bit too accurate to the real world, because most people never get closure from stuff like this, especially when it comes to missing persons cases. From how I see it, FNAF had a case of the right place at the right time. Horror needed something new, something exciting, something that would shake up the formula. We all know the story about FNAF's conception, but its initial impact in the mid to late 2014s was a bit of a crazy time to be in. If you told me back in 2014 that Five Nights at Freddy's would have blown up into a multi-billion-dollar franchise, multi-million actually, possibly billions, I don't know, spawning a multitude of games, merch, movies, a fan base fiercely loyal to said franchise, I'd probably believe you because I was a wee child back then. FNAF's early content days was something of a phenomenon to be in. Anyone remember when people used to call the purple guy Vincent? Or how about a PowerPoint presentation edited to music from 3 Days Grace, Skillet, Starset, or any other edgy preteen rock music band that screamed, "It's not a phase, Mom." It's a really nostalgic time to think back on. In fact, it was because of some of those slideshows that I ended up discovering stuff such as Starset. Starset quickly became one of my favorite bands for preteen me. Alongside that was just the balls-to-the-wall wackiness that was 2014 to 2016 FNAF. It was always something of a spectacle to witness. SFM animations, creepypasta readings from, well, Mr. Creepypasta and anyone else of note that isn't Mr. Creepypasta. I can't really remember. Tony Krynite casually turning a truckload of people into furries, debating on what gender mangle was back then when they were teased, MatPat's original theories on the game, the music from Living Tombstone, Nate Wants to Battle, and Mando Pony. Seriously, I know Mando Pony is a horrible-ass human being, but separating the art from the artist here. The top 10 list from Smike, and then the controversy that followed with the art theft and no credit whatsoever. Darko actually getting his start in FNAF 2 to becoming one of the main pillars of the FNAF community. Garrett Williamson making the Not Scary series and proceeding to blow up. I heard he's doing quite well nowadays. And said SFM animations that devolved into wacky shenanigans and a bunch of debauchery. Alongside that was some of the more interesting parts of the community, to say the least. Anyone remember Five Nights at Fuckboys? You know, where we had the famous
"Inhale my dong, enragement child."
That one was certainly something. And speaking of the FNAF theories, MatPat's first theory on FNAF it didn't age well. Some would say it aged like milk. And my god, I think that milk is gaining sentience. There was so much to look forward to when it came to FNAF. Scott's website was one of the main ways to gain sources of information for upcoming games and teasers that could possibly tie into the lore of FNAF as a whole. Seriously, back then, when brightening the image would reveal details that would be a game changer for teasers, or looking into a website to see little bits of developer comments that actually added onto the story, you just had to be there to really experience FNAF as the hype train was rolling. It was so good. FNAF was intuitive to a degree with how it marketed itself, and it genuinely was. And through the zeitgeist known as the internet, it was catapulted into the spotlight of insane popularity, with many hearts captured forevermore. I am one of those hearts captured. Looking back at it from an introspective point, I enjoyed this era of FNAF. I was always looking forward to the next big tease or some cool bit of fan art, or even just some music to listen to. My personal favorites would happen to be It's Been So Long from the Living Tombstone, Break My Mind, JT music had some really good songs, and even when FNAF started to slow down, I still kept up with it here and there, always seeing what was happening, you know, keeping up with the theories, the games, the YouTubers. I didn't really look at the gameplay all that much anymore, except maybe Sister Location and Pizzeria Sim, because those two are actually quite unique. And then there was the VR imports, and then there was FNAF AR. I'll be honest, FNAF AR never really seemed all that appealing to me. But anyway, getting back on track, I always kept up with the game, never forgetting my original infatuation with the series as a whole. Even when I was neck deep in League of Legends and debauchery, there were days where I would wait in anticipation for the next video drop from Markiplier in whichever game he was playing through, a new theory from MatPat and the Game Theorists, or just being sat at the lunch table during break, discussing with my friends about the latest things going on in FNAF as a whole. There was something special about it. Striking the iron when it's hot allowed for Scott to capitalize on the popularity, and it established itself as one of the mainstays of the horror space. A lot of people found comfort in the funny brown bear and his gang of Technicolor friends. My personal favorite of the gang was always Foxy. I always enjoyed his pirate shtick. It stuck with me. Even when the newer games started coming out and started introducing the other variants of the animatronics, like Rockstar Foxy, Mangle, which, you know, technically is a Foxy, Nightmare Foxy, Phantom Foxy, but I always stuck with the OG variants. I always stuck with OG Foxy and maybe with the Foxy from FNAF 2. Now that I'm actually writing this down, it doesn't surprise me all that much why I enjoyed the Vulpine Fiend so much. Cool design, interesting gameplay mechanics, and we can never forget his little song he does in FNAF 1. They even referenced that in the film. Maybe it's nostalgia clouding my brain, but honestly, going through the memories and even some of the older videos in the FNAF community made me realize something. While yes, it was cringe at the time of these things being popular, it shouldn't stop someone from enjoying them in general. I liked FNAF. Playing the first game, it renewed some of my interest that I had in the franchise as a whole, and even spurred on some nostalgia trips down memory lane for myself. While I'll probably never beat the max modes or even just the regular Five Nights, this franchise holds a special place in my heart, and I'm glad it could flourish into something more mainstream and mainstay. I even got the Silver Eyes, the first of the 3 books to read. I'll get back to you on that when I do eventually finish the book, but right now I've finished chapter 1. I think the books are like a really good introduction to FNAF's lore as a whole. It might be a good read, might not. Once again, I'll get back to you on this. I think I'll take my time with reading and enjoying these things for what they are. A horror franchise once steeped in mystery, forever solidified as one of the icons of internet horror as a whole. But you're probably wondering why I'm talking about FNAF in general. I just felt like gushing over something I still deeply care about, to be honest. And actually revisiting the games gave me a new perspective on them as a whole. FNAF got so popular, it transcended the barriers of the internet. It became a film series, a book series, merch. It even spawned its own little genre in the gaming space. You can't say that about many games. And the films are being produced by Blumhouse. And now with a second film coming out this year, people were talking, and it's ironic as I say this, people were talking about FNAF nearly over 10 years ago, and people are still talking about FNAF 2 now. Only in vastly different contexts of the matter. It's just a case of the more things change, the more they stay the same, you know what I'm saying? I'm excited for the second film. The first one wasn't so bad, all things considered, and me being a big old FNAF nerd, I really did enjoy the small details that the films themselves had. Oh my god, I'm so excited. The trailer was so good! So, I'll keep playing the games at least once, see how I feel about them, read the books, just really get back into FNAF while I wait for the DVD crossover to happen. See who gets picked for the crossover and see where everything goes from there. Horror is something one experiences for many reasons. For some, it's a comfort, for others an adrenaline rush. For me, it's a good scare. Something that can get me on edge as the tension slowly builds into that crescendo of fear. Until then, I'll be reading, playing DBD, streaming on Twitch, chilling in my Discord. You know where to find all that stuff. I'll get back to everyone when I can. When something itches at my brain in a certain way where I have to get my thoughts and feelings out, write them down, write a script, record, all that jazz. It's been Azura, guys, and I'll try not to forget my password this time around, alright? Okay. You guys go have fun. Later!